Alright, y'all. This is our special Halloween lecture. We're going to be talking about the ancient Egyptian beliefs of magic, demons, and ghosts. Which, I'm hoping this will be even be that interesting because it's not as fun as it sounds. Voted by mail. I also voted by mail. I have to check if it's been received because I turned it in late. I turned it in like a couple days ago. Patton believed that the U.S. was built in the blood of... Oh, for sure. 100%. It was. Hi, Redbeard Flynn! Voting by mail must be nice. What do you mean? Voting by mail is it not acceptable? Something I didn't know. I have been permanently added to the voting by mail every single election. And now they send me an insane amount of mail. But I don't care. But hello, Redbeard Flynn. Welcome to the stream. I am dressed as the illustrious River Song, the best fictional archaeologist, in my opinion. This wig is really itchy. But oh my gosh, we're gonna deal with it. We're gonna be fine. I might have to loosen this strappy thingy. Oh, there we go. Alright. Oh. Sorry, hun. Love ya, but yeah, I don't love Texas either. Oh, yeah. I apologize, but please go and vote. I would have gone and voted in person. Because of the pandemic, they were like, do you want to vote by mail permanently? I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Alrighty. We are just about to start our lecture, our special Halloween lecture. We're going to start with the ancient Egyptian belief of magic. I'll also mention, I just made this PowerPoint. I might have forgotten images, so I might just quickly hop over to Google and show you some images, because I forgot. For everybody to know, like, what to expect. First, we're going to be talking about ancient Egyptian magic, which may be more of a talk of ancient Egyptian religious beliefs. Then we're going to be talking about the ancient Egyptian belief in demons and evil spirits. And then we're finally going to talk about the belief of ghosts and good spirits. And I will end the lecture by telling you all pretty much the only ancient Egyptian ghost story we have. Unfortunately, I tried really very hard to find a translation of the actual text, but unfortunately I couldn't seem to find it on Google. So I'm going to read you out a synopsis that does have some quotes from the actual text in it. Sorry, I'm tucking my hair back in. So yeah, stay to the end if you want to hear a lovely ghost story, and it is really a good one. I don't know if I've actually ever read it all the way through. I know the gist of what the story is, but it is gonna be fun. Alright. So, one thing to say before we start talking about ancient Egyptian magic. This is not like magic potions or spells by witches, sorcerers, warlocks. This is not like Harry Potter types of magic. And this is not like magicians and tricks and pulling tricks out of a hat and stuff. This is technically religious magic, but the better way to describe it is religious ritual. Magic just seems to be, unfortunately, the word that is the easiest to describe what we see, and what we learn from it. But it is pretty much, I hate to say it, it's pretty much like a lot of other religions. There are definitely aspects of it that is more like, say, witchcraft or pagan rituals, Wiccan. There are elements like that where it has to be, you need certain supplies that the spell tells you, and you must use these supplies and say these words, and then something will happen. Divine magic, more D&D cleric than sorcery or wizard. Yeah, I would say, that's hard. There's actually a really good, where was that thing? Okay, so they believed that magic was this way of harnessing the powers of natural laws in order to obtain some sort of goal. But it did involve a lot of rituals. It involved a lot of worship and kind of singing and dancing and just continual worship with particular movements, particular speaking, particular like literally particular speech, particular movements to follow. Like for instance, these, obviously this is a fictional depiction, but we have the main priests in the front. Priests, as I'll show you later, they are always usually depicted bald, and with this leather, leopard, like coat, like with the full tail, the full legs, and the full head. And so you have different priests who are praising this god, obviously in a way to maybe heal this man. So it's and you see all of these guys have their arms up. They're all doing the same thing. The woman is here and she's doing this particular movement, probably while this guy's burning some sort of incense and this guy is reading something in particular. So it is more of this kind of ritualistic way of doing things. And it's very religious. It is really nothing. When mostly you think of typical magic, like if we're thinking magicians, if we're thinking Harry Potter. Oh, excuse me. I'm quite popular tonight. What the heck is my mom sending? My mom's sending us Halloween items. It's better if you think of Harry Potter. Harry Potter has nothing to do with religion. The wizarding world has absolutely nothing to do with like a religious movement. It is just the way that you are born. That's not really how this kind of works. They do believe that there is magic in everybody, but they only believe certain people can possess it, and that it is kind of meant to be used and altered, and usually typically used for protection and healing and stuff like that. Turning wax into living entities, resurrection decapitated birds, manipulating water. Yeah, so there are some very magician-like things, especially the decapitated bird. That is a particular Egyptian story. I think I made a TikTok of it. Yeah, I did for a Fun Fact Friday. I made a TikTok of it, and it's literally a magician who says, oh yeah, I can decapitate birds and then reattach their head and it'll be fine. That is a little bit separate from what I'm mainly going to be talking about. This is mainly more ritualistic, religious, within temples and within medical spaces as well. So the ancient Egyptian word for magic is Heka, which I have right here. So this is the ancient Egyptian word for Heka. Technically, this is the ancient word for Heka, the god, because you see it has a seated god determinative at the end of it, but it's pretty much the same thing. So some symbolic actions could have practical effects, but only certain ancient Egyptians could wield it, even though it was believed that pretty much everybody and all deities had some sort of Heka within them. They possessed this kind of force. And then what you would call magicians, or it's definitely not the word for priest because there is another word for priest, but anyone who sort of wielded this Heka magic were called Hekayu, so magicians. And then these are two depictions of Heka, the god, who is just a deification. Yeah. How'd you know I got these from Wikipedia? But these Heka was depicted, as you can see here, as this naked boy with a side lock and then sometimes with a large crown. If you guys were here, I don't know if I ever actually explained this in lectures. Children in ancient Egypt are pretty much almost constantly depicted naked. And that is not because ancient Egyptian children ran around naked. It's definitely a possibility, but it's probably not what that means. They probably are depicted this way as it's an easy, it's just an easy symbol to tell who is old and who is young. because if you're looking at a group of people in an ancient Egyptian like wall carving, you'll be able to tell immediately who is a child and who is an adult. The other symbol of a child is the finger to the mouth. I don't know why. It's just always there. It's always kind of to the center. When you see them frontally on statuary, it's always kind of to the middle of your bottom lip. And then the other symbol is this side lock. So a side lock is literally, which of course this guy doesn't look like he has a side lock because it looks like he has hair beneath it. But this guy, you can see it here. Literally, if y'all have ever seen Prince of Egypt, all the little kids, all the little boys had side locks. And it's pretty much just your head is completely shaven except for one big ponytail on the side. And those are the three. That was a question on my quiz that I for my course that I taught. Because pretty much all three of those, or even one of those, will indicate if the person is a child or an adult. It does look like a chandelier. This is one of the most elaborate crowns. There's definitely words for all of these different crowns. I do not know them. One of my best friends at grad school did a whole research about all the different types of crowns, so I don't know which one this is. But you can see they have uraei, lots of uraei actually, which are snakes with little sun discs everywhere. And these are reeds and cow horns. So it's probably has to do with Khnum, the oxen god, or the ram-headed god. Sorry, this wig has just suddenly gotten so itchy. Hem, thank you, Star. I don't know any of the names of the crowns. I very desperately want, I want my friends to come, like my friends from grad school, to come and give lectures on their like thesis topics. And I would absolutely love for my friend, actually she's been here. It's Egypt Bug, I think was her name. Her Twitch handle. She comes in sometimes, and I would absolutely love her to give a lecture on her crown research. You printed out the certificate for your course. I'm so glad you got it. Yeah, Egypt Bug. Yeah, that's one of my very good friends. If I remember correctly, there was a goddess of magic as well. Where's Theka? Yeah, there's so many gods and goddesses. I never can keep them all straight. This one I kind of knew, but like, again, he's not a huge like god. He's kind of technically a minor god because he's just this general manifestation of magic itself. Sometimes he is labeled as the son of Khnum, which could make sense why he's got like the ram horns. But I really liked this spell, which he's mentioned in. And again, when I mean spell, I wish that old Egyptologists didn't start calling it magic and spells, because now it just like, it makes it seem like it is magic, but it's not. By spell, I mean prayer, almost. To be honest, Star, he looks very similar to the child Horus. Like, when Horus is depicted as a human child, he looks exactly like this, minus the crown. But yeah, there definitely are other gods that look very similar to this. But this spell 261 says, "To me belonged the universe before you gods came into being. You have come afterwards because I am Heka." So the mythology around Heka is that that's who it was. Oh yeah, the child of Horus. Oh yes, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, the child of Horus, which was later like Greekified, and yeah, that's exactly who it is. It's I think it is Harpocrates. I think that is who it is. Yeah, I was thinking of the more Egyptianized version of it, but yeah, I think that actually is who it is. So it was kind of believed that Khnum is one of the creator gods who supposedly used his pottery wheel to sculpt human beings and then bring them to life. Another god breathed into them and brought them to life. And so it was said that Heka was Khnum's son and was again here before a lot of the other gods were created. So, priests were the main practitioners of this magic, and they were kind of guardians of this secret knowledge. And there was a type of priest called a lector priest, so that's Lector. And they were especially important because they were the priests who could read, and who could read the ancient books of magic that would be kept in the temples and the palace libraries and stuff. Because reading was so, or literacy was so low, it probably not every single priest knew how to read. There probably were only a couple of the really high up guys, because reading was only pretty much a luxury, except for these types of priests and scribes, pretty much. So these would be the priests who would perform the magic rituals to protect the king and to help the dead into the afterlife. In some early Egyptian history, some of these priests were also called scorpion charmers, who would specifically use magic to repel poisonous reptiles and insects. And that's a pretty early, I believe, more closer to like pre-dynastic, early dynastic type of priest. And then midwives and nurses were also trained in magic to assist in childbirth, because medicine, which there are medical texts that are found in Egypt, but when you kind of read them, you kind of realize that many of them are very closely interwoven with the religious and ritual aspects of Egyptian daily life. It unfortunately was not completely separate, like I would say religion and medicine is, although there are obviously things that have overlapped over time. But in modern medicine does not overlap with any sort of religious or ritual aspects of modern life. We also have different types of amulets. And amulets would be created by artisans and most likely then either blessed by those specific artisans or blessed by priests, with specific spells to protect you from sometimes specific stuff, sometimes more general stuff. Eye of Horus is a very general, just like protective amulet. These are all like miniature little gods, so each particular god could protect you from whatever that god typically protects people from. We got jed pillars, we got scarabs. This is an amulet of a heart. The ancient Egyptian word for heart is ib. Here's another two over here. I love these little headrests, are really cute. Here's some other hearts. Looks like could be Horus. Unfortunately, I didn't grab a Bess. Is there a Bess one here? I think this is Bess. Some of the really popular ones that have been found are amulets of the god Bess, amulets of the goddess Taweret, amulets of the goddess Hathor, and most Egyptologists call these those gods and other gods kind of pushed in with them. They call them household gods, and these household gods are obviously still very powerful, but they oh, you're right, it totally is Ma'at. You are right, Star. It's hard because when they all kneel, they all look the same. I like these. These are little triads. So depending on where these came from, they could be like specific. There are certain cities that had triads of gods or like their city god. I think it's like, I'm very bad at remembering the triads. It's like, I think one of them has Ptah in it. I think it was Ptah and Hathor, maybe. Oh, sorry guys. And then this is a scarab, obviously a winged scarab, but this also is frequently a heart amulet. That after the heart would be mummified, after the heart would be removed, an amulet like this could quote unquote replace it. So these household gods are gods and goddesses that would particularly protect you from kind of just like the mundane things in life. So childbirth would protect your children, would protect your household. And so that's why we kind of call them household gods. Doesn't mean they're not powerful. It just means that to be honest, they were probably worshipped more than some of the major deities by middle class and lower class people. Only probably the upper class people who were like within the royal family, within the royal court, priests would worship some of these major deities, because guess what? They gotta go to temple, they gotta show up and stuff like that. So all these had to be kind of imbued with some sort of magic. So it's unclear if the artisan itself would be the person who would imbue it, or if an ancient Egyptian person would purchase one and then take it to, say, a priest who would bless it for them. Yeah, protection from everyday things is very important. The reason I know a lot about household gods is, I think I've probably mentioned this before, my senior thesis in my undergraduate was about the ancient Egyptian city of Amarna, which is a very unique situation because it was only used for 14 years when Amenhotep IV, aka Akhenaten, moved the entire capital there, built an entire new capital, and pretty much only lived there until he died. And I did research on depictions of... So the other thing is Akhenaten worshipped one god. And at least from whenever I've been taught about Akhenaten and Amarna, something that is ingrained into your head is that Akhenaten only worshipped one god. He went from polytheism to monotheism. And while I don't distinctly remember anyone explicitly saying to me people would get punished for worshiping other gods, the implication was there. And so I wanted to do research if that there was any sort of presence of other gods being worshipped in Amarna. And I discovered a whole lot of stuff, mainly in the form of amulets and other quote-unquote small finds. And so I mapped out each of these objects that I found. Oh God, I probably was in the 500s. I can't remember. Maybe not 500. Maybe 200s. 500 was my dog thesis. Does it make sense that in both of my senior thesis and my main thesis, I just made giant Excel spreadsheets? I don't know. It's so typical of me. It's honestly kind of scary. But I did a lot of research and I found that the three biggest ones, which honestly I didn't really find any other presence of gods, were Bes, Taweret, and Hathor. And I told my, when I was asked about research topics, when I went to grad school, I told the head of our school and department, but honestly there wasn't a lot of professors, so when she asked me what I was thinking of, I mentioned that this is a project that I did and I would have loved to do more on it, especially now that I had such a huge slew of research. Like, I had so much more accessibility to books, to scholarly articles and stuff, and she was very flippant and was like, oh, well, they're household gods, so that doesn't matter. And it hurt me deeply because it was something that I worked very hard on and I was pretty confident in. And then a year later, I talked to another professor in the history department, and we were talking about this topic, and I was like, usually I don't like raise my hand to like brag about anything, but I raised my hand and said, I actually did research about this in Amarna, and I discovered that there are several other gods, and I used, my argument had been that I had made what was it? I had made a... Sorry, I just totally lost my train of thought. Oh, my main argument was that these amulets could have been a form of and now I can't remember the word for it. It's something resistance. It was a topic that I learned in my African diaspora class. Everyday resistance. So I used the argument that these amulets popping up were a way of doing everyday resistance, in which everyday resistance is essentially a concept that you can't rise up and do a full-blown rebellion, but you can do little things to annoy your captors, annoy your, in the case of slavery, annoy your owners, and things like that. And there's been multiple examples of this kind of throughout history, one of them being, I think it's either Norway or Sweden during the Holocaust. They would put paper clips on their lapels, and that would indicate, like, I think that would either indicate that you were Jewish, or that would indicate that you were Norway. Okay. I can't remember if it was indicating if you were a safe space or something. I can't remember. But like different things like that. And so I use this as an argument that these amulets were still being made, and people were still purchasing them because they were found in multiple different places in the city. Even in some of the royal areas, I found a couple examples of them in royal areas. And it was a way that somebody could wear it underneath your shirt and no one would know. And it was just your way of saying, stick it to the man, but I'm too scared of the man. There was an official in Akhenan's court who became a martyr later for being killed for worshiping old gods. I would love to, if you remember where that is from, Star, let me know, because I'd love to do more research on that. It's like saying saints and Christianity don't matter because they're not God or Jesus. Yeah. I was very upset with her when she said that, because I thought I had a pretty great argument. And granted, I didn't know a lot. And I thought I didn't know anything about Egyptology in comparison when I wrote that. Paperclip for holding things together. Unity. That's what it is. Unity as Norwegians. I had to watch a documentary in which a school in like the deep south wanted to learn about the Holocaust. And so they said something like they wanted to collect 6 million paper clips to understand how many people died in the Holocaust. And then they made a whole museum about it, and they actually got a train car from Europe that most likely transported Holocaust victims, and they brought it to their town and made a little museum out of it and filled it with paper clips. There's a myth that the paperclip was a Norwegian invention from right around where I live, and yeah, a version of the paperclip was invented by a guy here. It lacked the glass to turn the wire, so it snagged into our papers. Love learning fun facts about paper clips. That's hysterical. I had no idea. But yeah, it was a documentary I had to watch when I was in elementary school, and I really enjoyed it and learned a lot about it. But that's something I always remember, is the paper clips on the Norwegian collars. I love that. But yeah, so I use it as everyday resistance, and so household gods are very important. And apparently I believe that they were still quietly worshipped in Amarna, possibly under the threat of, I don't know, of murder. No, I'm on this page. So it also seems like, while this is not a cut and dry situation, it seems like there was not really any sort of evil Egyptian magic until Roman Egyptian times. We had, like, I know that we talked about this during my mummy curse lecture. Ancient Egyptian curses were just phrases of protection, and only really foreigners were accused of like doing evil magic. And one of my favorite things I ever learned about Rome were they used to do these things where they would carve curses / wishes on these little metal tablets, and they would throw them down wells. And a lot of archaeologists have like uncovered these, and they can actually read what these ancient Romans wrote, and all of them are pretty much just like, can you curse this man for cheating on me? Can you curse this woman for killing my cat or something? And it's literally hysterical. This is when being an actual time traveling archaeologist like Rosung would be good. Ugh! Believe me, half the time I'm just like, I really wish time travel was actually possible. Sometimes I wish that that the idea of time travel was never invented, because I get so jealous of the fact that we can't time travel. Uban are so many crocodile eat the guy's wife's cheating. Yeah. So I think it's funny how like I remember learning about that in Rome, and so maybe that tradition was kind of brought over to ancient Egypt, because unfortunately we don't really have a lot of evidence of kind of these evil curses or evil spells, really. We do have something called extrication texts, but I need to do more research on them because I don't really understand them. And I unfortunately didn't have time to add it to my curse lecture. So, dawn was the prime time for doing any sort of magical rituals. Only some priests and priests were required to be fully celibate, but frequently they were married. There were some that were normally married and only were asked to be abstinent before rituals. You pretty much had to be pure and clean. So they also said to avoid contact with polluted people. And ironically, not ironically, but funny enough, the pure polluted people were embalmers, so people who mummified bodies, which understandable. And then the telltale old time, I lost all my words, but the typical one, menstruating women, they were meant to avoid. But ideally, these priests would bathe themselves and dress into new, fresh clothes before doing a ritual. Now, I know I said that ancient Egyptian magic is not like Harry Potter, but they did have wands, or at least what we call wands. They're definitely not wands in the same aspect, but I don't think we could think of a better name of what to call them. But they're wands, and as you can see, that is a really good question, Charlie. So, for the most part, there were priestesses. Well, okay, based off the basic thing, yeah, probably they would have to take a break. And if I remember correctly, I did a little research on priestesses. Sometimes they would work in shifts. So sometimes they'd be off for like a month or something. So I'm hoping that might have had to do with women who are menstruating, potentially women who were married and having children and such, that they kind of were rotated through the temples. Because I don't know how often these rituals took place. Obviously they took place on kind of these high holidays that the ancient Egyptians had. But each temple was focused on usually one, maybe at a maximum 3, if we're talking about like a triad of gods who are always depicted together. Those holidays depended on whose temple you worked at and which city you lived in, because each city kind of had its own god and goddess that it worshipped. So I would assume that, yeah, they wouldn't be allowed to go in. The other thing about it is, while I'm not 100% sure about this, we do have female priestesses. We do have female, some of the titles are chantress or singer of the temple. I don't think women were doing these high rituals. I also don't think that these women probably were like lector priests who could read, say, the spells. I've never seen a woman depicted with the leopard skin. So when I say priestess, I don't really think women were allowed to be at that high level of priest or temple priest. They definitely were allowed, and there were some temples, if I remember correctly, that were almost all female. But I don't think women were allowed to be that high up. And whether or not they were allowed to be, or if they just didn't want to be, I don't know. I've never read anything saying like women can't be priests or whatever, but and we know for the most part of Egyptian history, women were still, I would say they definitely were not equal with men, especially over the entire course of Egyptian history. But they definitely had more rights than some other ancient cultures and some modern cultures. So I like to think that they were not equal, but they maybe were like down here. Yes. Oh, yeah. That is a good point. So there is one called God's Wife of Amun, and that is a huge title. God's Wife of Amun is you're literally you're supposed to be Amun's wife or the god or the god's wife. That, if I remember correctly, that is a completely celibate position. But again, I've never seen a woman depicted with that leopard skin. So I don't know. Usually, if I remember correctly, when there is a god's wife of Amun, there's still another priest. There's still like the high priest of Amun. Like, they're definitely pretty high up there. But obviously, no man could be the god's wife. They don't do a god's husband of Amun. Oh, third intermediate period. Yeah, I remember. I think I covered one girl before that. You're right. It also was held by queens. So that in that sense, unfortunately, if that title was given to a queen, the likelihood of her actually doing something in the temple is probably pretty low. She might have had to actually do some sort of rituals, like on these high holidays, like in the presence of the pharaoh or in the presence of like the whole court. But this queen was not gonna go out and do these rituals like all the time. Oh. Yeah. It might have been a guy. That was MelissainDeNile. Mayor S. Oh wait, it was right here. You totally are right. There was... Oh yeah. I need a better picture of that. I'm trying to find a better picture of that. This might take me to the... let me see if I can actually just get to the tour. I just want to get to the tour. Go back. I think you might be right. I think... Oh, it's so bad. You're right. This woman did have... This is MelissainDenile's mother, if I remember correctly. Because this tomb was originally for the queen, and MelissainDenile's mother was also a queen. And MelissainDenile died earlier, and so her mom donated it to her. And you are right, because it's very bad to see. This is a very blurry picture. But there is a head of something. You are curious. Curiouser and curiouser. I'm not sure what that is. Because I guess the thing is, it's not as distinctly a leopard skin. It's definitely some sort of animal skin. But it doesn't have the kind of spotty... I wonder if I can just search... That's slightly better. That is a good point, Charlie's Dragon. That's a very good point. Curious. Wish I had a better picture of that. Oh, here. Oh my god. Really? Why is it so small? Yeah, the reconstruction did have leopard print. Very interesting. Very, very, very interesting. I might have to think on that. I'll have to look at what the queen's titles were. She might have had a title which would have been priestess. I completely forgot about that. Thank you, Charlie. I'm gonna have to think about that. It's the blonde hair for me. I know. And that's the weirdest part, is that we're talking Old Kingdom, and like, I hate to say it, we don't know jack squat about any sort of ritual or temple stuff in Old Kingdom or Middle Kingdom. most of the stuff that we know about temples and rituals come from the New Kingdom, because most of it has to be written down, and we have very little textual evidence from the Old Kingdom and the Middle Kingdom. That's so interesting. Yeah, their short hair always weirds me out. I always forget that that was like a style during that time period, because there's not that many depictions of them with that short hair or the blonde hair in the reconstruction. But yeah, so I did say it wasn't like Harry Potter, but these are wands. They're usually made out of ivory. There are ones made out of wood. I think there even are some made out of metal. Oh, sorry, Charlie's Dragon. Can you message that link to Ashley, to A Pascal, and she can post it in the chat. I have links turned off for everyone else. Oh, I'm so thirsty. Oh, and I forgot to put chapstick on my lips. You can tell this is made out of elephant ivory. There are some ivory was taken from hippos, but their tusks are not nearly as big, so I would presume most of this is elephant ivory. Although these aren't actually that big. They could have been hippo. I don't know how big hippos' tusks are. They're always kind of curved like this, because obviously ivory, you can't do much with it when it's in the shape of like a tusk. And they all have these inscribed images all over them. You don't think they're as curved? That's what I was thinking too. So I automatically was assuming... Sorry, we're looking at Head of Pharisee. Beholder of Horus and Seth, follower of Horus, intimate of Horus, companion of Horus, consort of whom, great favorite. Yeah, she is labeled as priestess of Thoth, Bapfi, and what is that? Chaucep. Those are definitely the things that I would think as to why. I was wrong. I googled. They are curved. Okay, good. I just don't know how long they are. That's the bigger thing. Yeah, definitely these bottom three would pretty much be the only thing that would give her right to have like the typical leopard skin image of it. The other ones are very typical of a queen. Let's look up hippo tusks. Oh wow. Actually, that might be. Those might be the ones. Oh, look at a baby one. Yeah, actually. Whoa, look at this ones. These actually might be. Obviously, they would have much greater access to hippo tusks than elephant tusks. Yeah, actually, I think these are probably hippo ivory. There weren't really elephants in ancient Egypt, if anybody's curious. They definitely were there probably really early on, but they probably did not live in Egypt. But yeah, so we have lots of different images of very interesting characters on all of these. Most of these are demons. Well, the weird part about demons is that they could be evil or good demons. So these are kind of possibly both. But they are made to, there is an elephant hieroglyph. He's a little cutie. Doesn't get used very often, obviously, for obvious reasons. Oh, excuse me. The wands were thought to, oh yeah, Star, we're gonna talk about them in a second. But yeah, these wands were meant to kind of ward off any bad spirits, any sort of, bad demons, and so frequently they're depicted with these demons on them. A lot of these you can see here, they're all sitting on these reed baskets. I love this little guy, and this guy's one of my favorites. He's a weirdo. This one's a weirdo. This is a pretty famous one because it's really well preserved. Oh, there he is, the little elephant hieroglyph. But my favorite thing about demons, which I will talk about obviously in a second, but like I have to talk about it now. Look at their little knives. They just love, like, it's like literally if they're like, I want to show that this thing is evil. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna give a frog a knife. I think it's just so funny and just like obvious, if that makes sense. They're like, yeah, you might see a suspecting human around, but if he's got a knife, you know he's evil. Also, I realize that this looks like a giant sad face, and I apologize. These are especially Froggy Krueger. Very Halloween. These ones are usually used in childbirth, Ironically, that star just put the hieroglyph of a woman giving birth. That is Egypt Bug's favorite hieroglyph, because the little baby is going like this out of the body, but upside. Just picture me upside down. My favorite hieroglyph is the man falling, because it's just a sideways man, and then the man hiding behind the wall. Those are my two favorite guys. They're very funny. So these were frequently used to draw a protective area for women to give birth. And then the creatures on the wands. So even though these exact depictions are used to depict demons that you would see in, say, Book of the Dead, Book of Gates, or anything like that, these particular demons that are on the wands were thought to fight on behalf of the mother and child. They were thought to protect. So it's like, even though the depictions look exactly the same and they might be called something exactly the same, depending on the context of how the thing is used, they might be there for protection. So spells usually had two parts. The written spells were considered very sacred because, again, the majority of the population did not know how to read. So only a select few priests would know how to read out the spell. The first part would be the words needed to be spoken, and then the second part would be the description of the actions that needed to be taken. And everything had to be pronounced correctly. You had to know the proper names of all of these gods, goddesses, demons, etc. And then some of these spells did need ingredients to complete them. Some of them have been very weird, like the blood of a black dog or the milk of a woman who had a male child, for two examples for y'all. This is somebody's Book of the Dead, as you can see, and you can see everything's written out in ancient Egyptian, and they have sections that are in red and sections that are in black. Red typically means like the beginning of a statement, or the title. So this whole long thing might be the title of this entire spell. Having a knife-wielding baboon on your side would give you an advantage to fight. So yeah, it makes sense, even if you're fighting more insubstantial things like trying to kill you from travel. Yeah, exactly. Having anything with a knife, I think, will help you. So while we're not 100% sure about this, it seems like dancing and singing songs were frequently tied into these rituals. We don't know what exactly Egyptian music sounded like, but we do have one of the more ritual items, which is this. It's called a sistrum. Associated with Hathor, associated with fertility and sexuality. It is a elaborate tambourine, we'll say. It's a long, like, tube that goes around, or like a long plate, and then there are 4 or 3 metal rods that are stuck through them with little tiny discs that literally are like a tambourine discs that will kind of make a clinking noise, and then she shakes it, and then it always usually has like a face of Hathor at the bottom. So there was also thoughts that stamping, shouting, making loud noises were thought to drive away any sort of hostile forces during a ritual. And then continuing on, seshesh, yeah, that's the word for sistrum. So continuing on, even though most of these spells and rituals were done in a religious space, they were also used in a healing context. It was closer to, rather than it was fully medicine, it was like a complementary therapy to medical treatment. Doctors would use spells against supernatural beings because it was believed that they were the ultimate cause of diseases. Foul things were used to attract deities. So if you needed to extract a deity from a person or a demon from a person, you would use foul-smelling things like dung. And then they also thought that, if they use sweet things, then they would repel demons. There's also something called a Horus Sippus, which I forgot to take a picture of, so I'm going to go look one up, which was like a healing stone. And this stone could imbue water with healing powers, which could help internal injuries. Let's look up a Horus Sippus. Yeah, like this. So like these kind of stones, which of course we have Horus and depicted as a child, as you see, with the side lock and fully naked, a head of Bes at the front. And this is also, this is a very typical Egyptian motif called the Master of Animals motif, where he will hold two animals. And this motif goes all the way back to the pre-dynastic period. Here's a little basic one, little tiny one. Some of them get very elaborate. You can tell a lot of these are probably, well, let's look at what period this one is. Oh yeah, see, this is the Ptolemaic period. So again, this could be Sippus as it is. That is 100% like a Greek word. This might be more the goddess Hippocrates, which is like the romanticized or Greekified Egyptian Greekified version of Horus. So they show the god Horus and sometimes the god Bes, and it has healing spells carved all over it. Now, one of the other things that's really important to understand in these kind of medical texts is that you need to know the name of the demon. Knowing the name of something in ancient Egyptian religious beliefs, funerary beliefs, is extremely important because if you know the name of something, you can defeat it and destroy it. 1700 Scottish belief was to put a knife into the bed for the birthing of a woman to cut the pain. I love that. That's really cool. I'm going to take a quick bathroom break, and then we're going to start talking about demons, okay? I just need to take a quick bathroom break. I'm going to put the be right back symbol up. Should be very shortly. But get ready for demons. Actually, I'm not going to put the be right back. You guys can look at these images of demons, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Huh. Alright, I had to loosen this wig. It was giving me a headache. I bought this obviously in like 2016, so my brain space has gotten bigger for obvious reasons. I don't have any fun Halloween plans, Ashley, and I wish I did. I am going to go see Hadestown tomorrow at the Kennedy Center, which I'm very excited about. And then actually, we're going to take this time. Would anyone like to do a movie night tomorrow night? Unfortunately, I won't be able to do it on Twitch. It would have to be on Discord. But I do have a DVD with all of the original Mummy movies, like from the 1930s and 50s. It's gonna be fun. I'm gonna be in the absolute nosebleeds, but I'm taking myself out on a date. I'm gonna get nice and dressed up, and I'm hoping it's gonna be fun. It's one of those musicals that I like absolutely loved and went through a full-blown like honeymoon phase through, and then completely dropped it like a sack of potatoes and never listened to it again. But it's one of those things that it's like I have to go see it. It'll be cheaper for me to see it here than go up to New York, so might as well go see it. I do definitely love it. It's definitely a great one, but I got a little obsessed with it. I think that was right before the pandemic, when it was originally coming out, and then like dropped off the face of the planet. Sorry, I'm trying to like actually. You can't see that. Ow. So itchy. I don't understand how drag queens do it. How do they sit in a wig for so long? But if anybody would be up to, no, you see my wig cap. If anyone would like to do a movie night, I will. If not, I'll just stream, and I'll stream something. I don't know what I'll stream, but we could do a community night as well. We could play some community games. It really just depends on how I feel tomorrow, because the show's a matinee, so I'll be home early enough. But yeah, I'll post on Discord tomorrow and see if anybody's interested. I'm gonna eat this apple cake that's left over from our Halloween party at work. I don't know why it's so greasy, but I don't care because it tastes amazing. Okay. Demons. Demons are, again, the word demon. There is no ancient Egyptian word for demon. These demons could be good or bad. Saying that they are a demon does not necessarily mean that they are evil. They tend towards evil, but that does not necessarily mean that they are always depicted as evil. There are demons that appear in two different realms, the funerary realm and the mortal realm. Those that are in the funerary realm are pretty much only talked about in funerary papyri. So things like the Book of the Dead, the Book of Gates, coffin texts, the pyramid text, things like that. And those that are in the mortal plane, the mortal realm, they are only mentioned in medical papyri. So although demons, hello Ruby Mad Hatter, welcome. Yeah, I just wanted to gauge and see if anybody wants to hang out with me, because I don't have any plans. But if you have plans, if the weather holds up, go to the plans. Don't make plans with me. Don't skip actual plans to come and hang out with me. But I will, tomorrow I will wear if I do stream or if I do watch a movie, I will wear a costume. I don't know which costume, but I have two others that I can do. Time to summon your inner demons and kick the crap out of them. I need to summon some evil demons for sure. I don't drink any tea, but I'll drink some alcohol. For sure. Always summon those inner demons. So, although demons have kind of always appeared in Egyptian religion and magic, they were a much bigger thing going into the late kingdom, the late period, and then going into the post-Pharaonic age. So, Ptolemaic Egypt, Roman Egypt. Taking the kids trick-or-treating. Yay! With their cousins. I miss trick-or-treating. Trick-or-treating is so fun. I will also mention that I did, so I'm not going to say I got invited somewhere because I don't know this person, but I did get invited somewhere. Technically it would have been tonight. On Hinge, one of my photos on my dating profile is me dressed as Meg from Hercules. It's probably the best costume I've ever done. I looked so good in it, and I want to repeat it. If anything, that might be the costume that I do tomorrow if I do stream. Although I have to figure out where I have stashed it. But a guy messaged me on it, when he matched with me and messaged and said, "Oh my gosh, I'm going as Phil and my friend is going as Hercules to this bar crawl in DC, and we need a Meg. You should come with us." And it was very tempting. And I stupidly am feel guilty that I didn't go because I think it actually kind of would have been fun. But again, this is the first message that he ever sent to me. I would be paired not with him, I'd be paired with his friend, who, if his friend's playing Hercules, maybe his friend's hot, that'd be great. But then I would feel guilty because obviously he matched with me on Hinge, and I obviously make assumptions that that's the guy's plan. And I unfortunately was not physically attracted to him or pretty much anything else about his profile. And so I didn't want to go into it on a lie that yeah, I'll go out on a date with you. So there's that. But I think it actually kind of would have been fun for couples costume and to meet more people, which is something that I've been wanting to do. But the situation was a little weird. I don't think I would ever go on a bar crawl with just a person that I've never met in person. So that's another thing. Demonic influence appearance in Egypt similar to what we expect in standard fantasy or different? I would say very different. It's much more nonchalant. They do, in my research that I just kind of quickly did this morning, they do throw around the words demonic possession a couple times. They don't really describe what that means. One of the things that they describe is that in the daytime, or at night, demons would possess you with nightmares, but in the daytime, it was called demonic possession. And they don't really I haven't seen anything describe what actually would happen to you if you were possessed by a demon. But the main thing is that demons were thought to bring illness, sickness, and death to humans. So in that aspect, I don't think it's that close to obviously, the big one is misfortune. Obviously, demons in modern fantasy, standard fantasy, bring misfortune. But it's not as cut and dry with it when it comes to Egypt. Because the other thing is that, so again, there are these ones in the funerary realm, and then there are ones, shitty time show in a body. Amazing. Yeah, I think so. Again, there are these funerary ones, and then there are these medical ones, and I'm going to go into greater detail about each type. But again, no technical word for demon. This is just a word that has been assigned to these minor deities that we don't have a lot of information about, but have usually been described in some sort of evil context, I guess. But again, some of these are also good, so you have to kind of take a grain of salt. I love that little emote. Is that a little mummy face? Reaper, where did you get that emote? CJ Ride. What an interesting emote. Oh, it is him as a little mummy. It's so cute. Um, what was I looking at? So many of these evil demons typically like assist other gods, and that does not necessarily mean they assist them in evil deeds, or good deeds. These gods also did not have massive cult followings like the major gods. Frequently, they lived in dark areas. They lived only during the night. And in a lot of natural places like desert pools, rivers, streams, ponds, mountains, caves, pits, and tombs. Because tombs, again, are this kind of passageway to the netherworld, and so they would frequently appear, quote unquote, in tombs. Demons are often described in pairs of 3, as you can see kind of below. Pairs of 3, in pairs themselves or in gangs, and those gangs, as I'll mention, are like groups of 7 as well. So how many are in here? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think 7. That might be a full 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7. Yeah, see, 7. The 3 thing, yeah. Triads. The number 3 is very important in ancient Egypt. Like triads of gods is very popular. Yes, that I didn't really think of 7 as much as like 3, but it is kind of funny how that kind of happens, and whether or not there is some sort of like some sort of weird influence of like why that is. Why does 7 and 3 fit? Like, why is it so popular in lots of different like cultures? So we have the demons that were stationary, and these were ones that were in the funerary realm, and they kind of stayed where they were. They stayed there. They didn't really do anything. You only encounter them if you went to that particular place. And then there were traveling demons who could travel between the afterlife and the mortal plane, and they are known as wanderers. And these are usually the ones that are connected with the disease, misfortune, nightmares, and possession. But these do slightly overlap. You might see certain demon gods who are mentioned in both the funerary and medical papyri. So first, let's talk about guardian demons. So the main function of guardian demons was to protect the sacred passages, the gates, and the doorways to the netherworld. So they appear in spell 145 and spell 146 of the Book of the Dead. These gates are typically called the AA roots, gates of the House of Osiris. The Iriaa are the doorkeepers, the Sawi are the watchers, and the Semi are the heralds. And in different books, it's always different. There's the Book of the Dead, there's the Book of Gates. There's another one, the Book of... Oh, I can't remember. But pretty much it just describes how you have to reach all these different gates to get to the afterlife. And if y'all didn't know what the Book of the Dead is essentially, the Book of the Dead is essentially a instruction manual. The Book of the Dead is an instruction manual or map. The Book of the Dead is a map quest, a printout of a map quest for any of my older pre-GPS fans. The Book of the Dead will Traversing Eternity. No, my roommate did all the Book of the Dead stuff, and I can't. There's just another one. It's the Book of the Gates. Yeah, that's literally what it is, Ruby Mad Hatter. It's literally this Book of the Dead. You would make it before you died, and you would say, "Hi, Uncle Bill. Thank you so much for hosting." Did anybody hear that? I don't know if I can hear the notification, but I saw it. So thank you, Uncle Bill. We're doing a lecture. You didn't hear it? Okay, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it just might have been really quiet against the music. Hopefully. We'll fix it later if it is. It literally is like a map quest. It's these, oh, I do hear it. It's really quiet. I need to up my alerts. But thank you, Ruby Mahatter, for hosting. I did hear it very quietly. So it's probably the music is just too loud. Or the alert is too quiet. There's also that. Oh, the headphones are falling off my head. You needed the Book of the Dead to get to the afterlife, to get to the Field of Reeds. And the Book of the Dead would say, for example, I'm going to assume this piece is coming from the Book of the Dead. I'm not exactly sure, but it's from the British Museum, so I'm going to assume it is. This text probably says, the first gate that you will reach will have this god. And it will tell you the name of this god. And when you go to the afterlife and you reach that gate, oh, the Book of the Amduat. Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is, the Amduat. I forgot about that one. Yeah, it's definitely the Amduat. That's the other really big New Kingdom text is the Amduat one. This text would say, hey, you are going to encounter this god. This is this god's name. This is how you get past him. Literally, the way that you would get past these guys is just by knowing their name. So, essentially, if you did not have a Book of the Dead map quest, you could not get through these because you would just be guessing their names, and if you guessed wrong, they would kill you, probably. They would... Oh, Book of Caverns. That might be the other one I was thinking of. I was thinking of the Book of Gates, and the Book of Caverns. So many different books, and I know nothing about them, or even if how they're different or anything. But yeah, so these stationary gods, they didn't really leave. They kind of just always stood there by the gate protecting it, and they would let you pass through if you knew their name. The guy did in Monty Python. I was literally talking about Monty Python yesterday with my dad. It's one of my dad's favorite movies. And he dressed up as Tim the Enchanter a couple Halloweens ago, actually a lot of years ago. But he wants to go to the Renaissance Fair with me next time and dress as Tim as the Enchanter because he loves him. But yeah, it's very similar. Very similar. Yeah, the bridge guy. Yeah, at the very end. I love that movie. That movie's so funny. So these types of gods did appear in the earlier Coffin text and some other New Kingdom books of the afterlife. As you can see from the bottom, they usually appear as anthropomorphic forms with hybrid human-animal representations. You got reptiles, felines, canines, baboons, donkeys, goats, hippos, bulls, insects, scorpions, and birds. Pretty much everything you're going to find. In particular, one of my favorites is the bunny. Here's a bunny up here. I think they're very funny and cute. The snakes are always see, like this is a double-headed snake. I think that's a donkey. I don't know what that's supposed to be. That's like obviously a jackal. But the snakes are so funny because it's like they're supposed to be wearing these little head dresses, and I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, how are the snakes wearing that? I don't know. These beings were thought to be of flesh and blood. They weren't like ghosts or spirits or anything. They were supposed to be kind of real, because they have different epithets and titles. Some of the best ones are the Swallower of Sinners, the Bellower, and the Rapacious. The Raptious one? The Rapacious one? I'm very bad at reading that. The Raptious one, I think. And so they can be very dangerous if you don't know their name and if you can't pass through the different gates. Then we have the Swallower of Sinners is a badass name. If I was in a D&D campaign or something, there is like a spell I think in D&D where you can Sharpest of Them All. I love that one. There is like a spell in a D&D campaign called like if you kill somebody you can like free their soul and it will be like part of it, and I'm like, I would 100%, if I had that spell, I would be called the Swallower of Sinners or the Swallower of Souls. I would love that. Also, Eater of Waste from one's buttocks? No way, that cannot be one. Eat Sin is one ability in Pathfinder? No way. I need to look up Pathfinder. Is that the game that you're playing, Ashley? Are you playing Pathfinder and not D&D? Complete side note. Lately I've been thinking, Eater of the Foulness from his hindquarters. Yeah, so I absolutely love that. Inquisitor subclass. I might have to talk to you, Ruby Mad Hatter, about Pathfinder. I've been having an idea to do an Ancient Egypt D&D campaign, and while it hasn't, Ruby Mad Hatter's your DM. Oh, you merge into a Pathfinder game. Okay. I might have to ask you about Pathfinder sometime, because I've been having plans to do an Ancient Egypt D&D campaign, and I haven't fully actually started planning it, but I would like to do it, and possibly I would like to do it on stream. I've never DM'd something, but I would love to try. But I'm curious on what game I should do it with, because I was possibly gonna do it on Kids on Brooms instead of D&D. The area the players are in is Egyptian-like. That's really cool. The basic is I want modern people, so modern humans, to travel back in time to ancient Egypt. And so I've been trying to work around the whole class and race thing. Mostly race. Race is I don't want to have to do all the legwork to rope in a modern world that has all the different races that D&D has. But I definitely don't want to have to rope all of the other different races into ancient Egypt. I don't want to have to come up for an explanation with that. Because I want it to be as authentic Egyptian, with the exception that we will be doing magic and there will be gods talking to us and things like that, because we gotta keep it fun. It can't be boring. But I'm curious. I've been more thinking of the plot to like make sure that I have like a good enough idea of what to do, and then I'm gonna start looking into the more like mechanics of it. But I completely forgot about Pathfinder. I wonder if Pathfinder would be easier. I'll have to. I'll send you a message. I'll send you a message on Discord. Which can be modern but has magic in other systems. That I would like. See, that's why I kind of was trying to do Kids on Brooms instead, because I watched the Dimension 20 season, season play where they did Kids on Brooms, and it seemed more accessible to kind of play without like, because in that season they were all humans who went to a magical school, so they were modern humans, they had all the modern stuff, but then they were allowed to do lots of different spells and things like that, but the only thing that I would miss are like particular fun objects that I could get in D&D and stuff like that. But yeah, Pathfinder, I'm gonna keep that in mind. I have a whole Discord thread in my Discord about D&D ideas. Unless you have some. Got it. Good to know. Good to know. Yeah, I am a big noob. Unfortunately, I wanted to play with my friends. I wanted to test it out with my friends and then try to do it again on stream. Unfortunately, my friends, we have been playing D&D virtually for about over a year, and we're about only one chapter into this D&D quest. That is a written quest. It is not a homebrewed quest. Because of scheduling issues and because of shenanigans and such. And so I don't think I can rely on my friends to be able to do two D&D campaigns. Yeah, we've been using Roll20 as well. We've mostly moved over to Zoom for video stuff, like to actually talk and stuff, but we do still use Roll20 for rolling dice and stuff. I love Roll20. I had to convince my DM to use Roll20 because we were her first D&D campaign she did. She's now apparently DMing like 4 campaigns. I don't understand how she's doing. But I had to convince her to use Roll20 because the D&D campaign that she was in were using Zoom. and images and like the annotations on Zoom, and I was like, girl, we just need to use D20 or Roll20. That's what I want to do. I want to DM one campaign and play one. But I actually think it'd be fun to get people that I don't know very well, because I have to say, I think if you don't know them very well, you don't have the courage to cancel on them. It's something that's been annoying me for the past couple days. Because people just don't show up and people cancel at last minute. Oh, one real life and one online. Yeah. I'm definitely going to send you a message, Ruby Mad Hatter. Because I want to try to see if maybe I could start it in like January or February. Because at least I just need at least ideas on how to convert a lot of stuff from home, like to make it homebrew with just like without doing everything homebrew. You're DMing 4. Oh my god. Also, we're going back to see all the different epithets that Star has been posting in here. Eater of the foulness from its hindquarters, existing on maggots, that's a really great one. Stretched out of forehead, I love that. Powerful of knives, that's a really great one. You could be shocked that's already been done. I have found some things that have already been done that I will definitely be taking and using, like converting some sort of god, like some Egyptian gods and stuff. But I have a really good idea, and I luckily just came up with like I think a good enough plot, but it is very heavy on like my own knowledge of ancient Egyptian religion and such, so like I have to kind of rope my way around it. And the big thing is I'm just trying to hurdle over if I can just negate races at all, and if we'll be missing out if I don't give them all of the extras that you get for particular races when you choose them. Also, I just discovered this place called Archaeo Gaming, and they do I have seen them before. They do a what is that? What is WOD? What's WOD? I'm writing that down. It focuses on humans. This one, World of Darkness. I'm writing that down because I will take anything that will make something a little bit simpler. I didn't even know about that one. World of Darkness. Pathfinder. Good to know, Ruby Mad Hatter. Ooh. That's very tempting. That might be the way in. And I just homebrew that one. The other ones were these weird demonic beings, and there's just a lotus boy. Apparently Nefertumi was one of the assessors of Maat. Interesting. That's what I want. Ruby Mad Hatter, that's what I want. World of Darkness wins. If it works out, that is definitely what I'll play instead. Because I want it to be much more on story. I still want there to be fighting and stuff, but I want it to be much more on story and mystery and little battles and such. But I want it to be, honestly, a weird learning experience for ancient Egypt. That's like what I want it to be. So that sounds perfect. Oh, I'm so happy. That makes me so excited. Oh my gosh. Alright, back to the lecture. I definitely will hit you up for Ruby Mad Hatter in the next coming, I don't know. I won't have any time to do it until probably the new year, but I will hit you up. Ooh, I'm so excited now. Also, if anyone's interested, let me know in the Discord. There's a whole thing about D&D ideas. No, you're not distracting from the lecture. Totally fine. I'm glad I've met you to talk about this, because I've been curious about who to talk to about it and like trying to find a better way. So I'm really glad that Ashley has introduced us, and now we have a better idea of what I could do. But if anybody's interested in joining this campaign, your Saturday night game for Pathfinder, I'm very interested. I'm so into D&D like play. Like I've been watching Dimension 20 like obsessively, and I've just been starting to listen to Not Another D&D podcast. if at 7 p.m. See, unfortunately, I typically stream on Saturday nights, but usually I could go until 9. Send me a message, Ruby Mad Hatter. I might join. I need to make new friends. I need to make new friends, and I really like D&D content, and I'm only currently playing with my high school friends, so I would love to make new friends. I think I might consider this. I've also been trying to get out of my Saturday streams because it would just like be a little bit more convenient for me, but damn me. I'm very interested now. Alright. So, bite of an apple cake and then back to demons. Oh my god, so good. So, we have the stationary demons. Which one are you on my Discord? Which one of me? I am MelissainDeNile. I think that's my name. I think that's my name on Discord. Yeah? Yeah? Probably. I think. If you go over to the, I just waved hi to you. Yes. Hello. Yes, you are correct, Ruby Mad Hatter. I got it. Hi, Natalia. That's totally fine. We were just taking a little break talking about D&D, but now we're back on demon talk. I was telling everybody, Natalia, about, we did a whole thing about ancient Egyptian magic and how about it's not exactly magic, it's mostly religious kind of ritual magic, but now we're talking about demons, and then we're going to talk about ghosts, and then I'm going to read you guys a ghost story at the end. So we're kind of halfway through. Well, probably more than halfway through. So we're talking about, firstly, there are these guardian demons who kind of sit there and they wait in the afterlife at the different gates. Then we have the wanderer demons, and these demons, excuse me, these demons are rarely depicted. They're usually only mentioned in text. Many of these gangs of demons acted as troops of service to other major deities, particularly Ra, Osiris, Set, Bastet, and Sekhmet. Usually these groups are in 7 members, or even multiples of 7. So you can see actually here we have 7 on this papyri here, and then I think if we count this one, we also have 7 demons as well. Some of these are typically known as the Seshseru, or the arrows. They also could be called the Shemayu, which is just kind of this word for these wanderers, these kind of demons that are allowed to go back in between the netherworld and the mortal world. And these are the ones that we typically we believe that they are responsible for, or the Egyptians believe that they were responsible for illnesses, misfortunes, and the troubles of humans. And these are the only ones that can kind of be partially warded off with magic. This is a super interesting fact that I literally learned while doing this research just today, but it makes sense, and I've seen evidence of this, but I suddenly thought of biblical references to this and how it might have been construed differently. But apparently, the ancient Egyptians would outline their doorways with red paste as a thought to ward off spirits. That's literally what happened in the Bible with the story of Moses. God told him to put ram's blood across their doorway to protect them from the Holy Spirit, and I'm like shooketh when I found out that fact, and I need to do some actual more research into what the Egyptian equivalent of that is. But at least in my perspective, it shows that the writer of the story of Moses actually had some knowledge, firsthand knowledge of ancient Egyptian traditions, and borrowed that from that story. So that's very weird, very interesting. Didn't think of that at all. Had no idea about that. So these wanderers, as I mentioned before, could possess you and attack you in your nightmares. And then they could also possess you in the daytime, which was technically called like a demonic possession. There are lots of different gangs. I'm only really going to talk about one or two. There were the Hatsu, who were called the Slaughterers, and they were mentioned in the pyramid texts. So the pyramid texts date from the later half of the Old Kingdom. So not the pyramids of Giza, but the pyramids of the later period. And then kind of going into the First Intermediate period and the Middle Kingdom. And this word Hatsu is very close to the Egyptian word, I think it's Hatiti, of disease. So that's possibly how they got their name, is that they are associating with the actual word for disease. So to ward off these different demons, spells could have been written down, obviously by some sort of scribe or some sort of priest that was literate. And they could be either placed in a little container or worn in a necklace around your neck to keep the demons away. Which I think is something that has been seen throughout history in lots of different places. The concept of wearing something that has been blessed, or wearing something that actually has the written spell or phrase or prayer. I think that's extremely common throughout history. Very few of these demons were mentioned by name, because again they were kind of talked about in these like gangs of 7 or multiples of 7. But there was a demon called Shak-Kak who was blamed for headaches. So if anybody gets a headache, blame Shak-Kak, the demon, for possessing you and giving you pain. What the hell is that underneath my desk? Is that a... Oh, it's a bead. That's what it is. I thought it was an acorn, which wouldn't make sense why it would be underneath my desk, but it is a macrame bead, which I will roll over. I'm so distracted. LOL. Nope, it's not. It's a pretzel. It's a pretzel. It is written in English, like... Oh. Where did I write that? In Egyptian, it would be written as, second H, Aleph, QQ, or KK. That of course, like, when I use the capital letters, that means it's actually second S and the Aleph, which is a capital A. So I can't, like, unfortunately I don't have like a text thing where I could write it phonetic or in what we call transliteration. But you would pronounce it like the first one I sent, and it's technically written with that, but so this is the asshole responsible for the pain of most of my adult life. Yep, for sure. For sure. I love the idea that we can just blame something on, like, a very specific demon. Also, this god has apparently been depicted as a naked child with a bad headache in Deir al-Medina. I wish I could find an image of it, but I couldn't find anything. Probably meaning it's a really very rare image. There was also a group called the Upitu, kind of, I think. And these were called the messengers. And so these were people who were sent to Earth to act at the service of their gods. But this could be also positive or negative. They did not necessarily have to be negative acts. And they are usually associated with Sekhmet, Seth, or Osiris. Every day. Oh my god. Oh, you have migraines. My mom has migraines. I was very lucky not to get them. Because they are obviously horrible. And I feel very bad for anyone who gets them. Alright, guys. let's go to where I think most people want to know. Were there ancient Egyptian ghosts? Not this guy. I will give you a quick rundown of who this guy is. This is a Egyptian god called Medjed. He is probably my favorite minor deity. We know literally nothing about him. He's on 2 papyri, I believe both located at the British Museum. And he became a meme in the early 2000s in Japan because that one of the papyri went on tour to Japan, and the Japanese people freaked out because how freaking cute is he? And he became a meme. He became a video game character, an anime character, and I love him, and he's very cute. And literally the only thing we know about him is he shoots lasers out of his eyes, and he's a protector of Horus. But obviously he looks like a ghost. This is not an Egyptian ghost. This is just how this god looks. This sad little man. He also is going to be my first tattoo. Yeah, apparently he shoots fire out. So not lasers, fire out of his eyes. I think that I'm trying to get back into making like my Fun Fact Friday. For those who didn't know, like my Instagram technically has been down for over 2 months now. I used to do 3 posts a week. I used to do a Mummy Monday, Women Crush Wednesday, and a Fun Fact Friday post. And he was my first Fun Fact Friday. And I've been wanting to kind of transition because my Instagram is down and there's no end in sight, unfortunately. I've been trying to see if I could convert some of these posts into TikToks, and if I did, Medjed would definitely be number 1. But let me read you a little bit. I'm scrolling all the way back down. This is one of the images of him, and this is the second. Again, little ghost dude with a lady. But Medjed means the smiter. He is only mentioned in 2 surviving books of the dead, the Greenfield Papyrus and the Papyrus of Nebseni, both located at the British Museum. Medjed is described as an unseen god who can fly, shoot rays of light from his eyes, breathe fire, and smite other beings, all to protect the god Osiris. Medjed is depicted as a shroud, he looks like a guy wearing a sheet. But he also could be depicting a mound. So he could be like a hill. Like that's literally what he could be. Within 2 feet and 2 eyes. So he could be like a animated version of a mound or of a hill. You've been to the British Museum? I've also been to the British Museum. Unfortunately, I don't think either one of these papyri are on display. I'd have to look it up. They're pretty important ones, so I would think they'd be on display, but like I don't remember ever seeing them. I would have loved this guy if I saw him in person. When the Greenfield Papyrus, which contains the only known images of Medjed, so that's the other thing, is they're not. Yeah, that's what I thought. So there are 2 versions of the Greenfield Papyrus. Both of the images come from there, but he is also mentioned in the Papyrus of Nebseni, but there's no images. So the Greenfield Papyrus was displayed at the Moro Art Museum and the Fukuoka Museum in Japan in 2012, and Medjed became an internet sensation. Fan art, comics, and manga. I want to show you all these. Actually, why don't we all just take a trip to my Instagram, and I'll show you the images up close. Feel free if you want to follow my Instagram. It's technically not working. The only thing I post is my TikToks now, so follow me on TikTok if you really want content. But you can go back and read all my posts. There are almost a year's worth, and I think they're very interesting. You can also go to my website and go read my blog, which again, because my Instagram is not working, I don't post there anymore. So here is one of the Medjed images. Here's him on the full papyrus. So he's right here. And again, look, we got demons, the little demons with the knives as well. And yes, it is very typical that that Japan loves him. This is the other one. Obviously it's been cut, but I believe they have the other portion of it. It was just for easier transportation. So again, little demons. And then, oh, this is the spells. So I know the name of that smiter among them who belongs to the house of Osiris, who shoots with his eye, yet is unseen. Spell 17 from the Book of the Dead, sheet 76 of the Greenfeld Papyrus. And then I know the being Medjed, who is among them in the house of Osiris, shooting rays of light from his eyes, but who himself is unseen. He goes around about heaven, robed in the flame of his mouth, commanding happy, but remaining himself unseen. And then the next three images are all of the funny anime and fan art of Medjed. This is my favorite image I've ever seen in my life. And I love this thing like I love a son. Because this is my son. Whoever made this is my favorite person in the world. I want to get a tattoo, and I want my first one to be an ancient Egyptian thing. So, my lovely mod Ashley gifted me the Medjed. I have it on my work. Where's my work? I wear it on my work lanyard. So Ashley gifted me this lovely little pin of Medjed. And so I cannot decide if I want to get this Medjed, this Medjed. This one I'd probably prefer over the other one just because of his legs. I can't decide if I want this Medjed, the pin version of Medjed, or if I want to be completely stupid and get this tattooed on my body. Because I love this guy so much. He's just so funny. And then this is another great one. Another great image of the little Medjed shooting lasers from its eyes. Go for the third, just say screw it. I want to get it on my ankle so it looks like he's walking with me. I want to be accurate, so unfortunately I'm very much leaning towards the... Oh, see, I love the cute one though. He's so freaking cute. Although I'd have to alter his eyes. I'm gonna fire my lasers! And then there's this guy. This is an actual anime, which literally the tie is also very tempting. And look how cute he is in this little business suit. Business shoes. It's just, I love him so much. So Redbeard, we did a quick transition because we're starting to talk about ancient Egyptian ghosts. So I put up this image because this guy looks like a ghost. He looks like the funny versions of ghosts, of a kid being shrouded, but he's not actually a ghost. This is my favorite minor deity in ancient Egypt. His name is Medjed. We know literally almost nothing about him. He's only on one papyrus, or he's only depicted on one papyrus. He's only mentioned on 2 papyri. So this is one image of him with the full papyrus and all the other demons. And then this guy. So no matter what, I definitely want the Egyptian eyes. This one doesn't have the Egyptian eyes. He's just got basic eyebrows, and I want the Egyptian eyebrows. He looks like a Fall Guys dude. He does. He just doesn't have arms. But yeah, so he's only mentioned here, and then these are the quotes of him. But literally all we know is that he fights for Osiris. He breathes fire, shoots rays out of his eyes, and so then he went to those papyri went to Japan, and the Japanese people freaked out and were like, this guy is so funny, and so he went viral in 2012, and this is what came out of it. There's so much. Just look up Medjed. His name is spelled this way. Just look up Medjed on Google. Google Images is gorgeous. Yeah. He definitely did not skip leg day. And I've been talking about how I want to get him tattooed on me because I love him, but I haven't decided if I want this one, which is an unlikely candidate, but it's very funny. This one, which I don't like his long, like, leg stance, because if you imagine where his, like, crotch is, it's, like, way up high. So I prefer this guy, but I want the fancy eyebrows. Or if I want the pin that Ashley sent me, who's so little chibi and cute. Step on me, daddy. Oh my god. Absolutely insane. But yeah. So ancient Egyptian ghosts, unfortunately, don't look like this, because he also could be, while he is sometimes talked about as being, like, people have interpreted him as, the pin is amazing, I wear it to work every day, there's my ID, nobody has asked me about this. The other pin is the sun, which was given to me by my organization because it's what the president, like, her motto is something about letting the sun shine on us or some bullshit like that. I wear this little chibi pin every day, and nobody has asked me about it. And I told my friends how much I loved this dude. My best friend made me she painted me a pot for one of my plants with Mejed going around it. And I brought that to work, and it is the first thing you see when you go to my desk. It's at eye level for half these people. And nobody has asked me about this cute little dude. And I'm like, y'all are stupid. He does look like a skirt without the upper body, for sure, for sure. But yeah, he's either been interpreted as a guy in a shroud or as a mound, like literally as a hill, which is probably a better interpretation of it. He's probably just like a animated hill, if that makes sense. Even though we actually already have a personified hill, or personified mountain. It has arms that come out of it. But that's beside the point. I digress. Let's talk about ghosts. So the first thing I want to talk about before we talk about ghosts is talk about spirit or the soul in general. So there are anywhere from 7 to 9 parts of the Egyptian soul that the ancient Egyptians believed in. And you needed all of these to get to the afterlife. So on a very basic, quick little thing, the Ket is the physical body. The Ka is the double form. The Ba, which you can see here, is the human-headed bird, which is the only thing that can leave the afterlife. The Shutet was the shadow. The Ak was the immortal transformed self. The Sahu and the Sekhem were aspects of the Ak. The Ib is the heart, and the Ren is your name. And you needed all of these things to be able to get to the afterlife. So if we think of what the basic definition of a ghost is, it is usually a deceased person wandering around the mortal plane. So if you just go along with that knowledge, an ancient Egyptian ghost would be somebody who couldn't make it to the afterlife, possibly because they did not have one of these portions of your soul. But you could also argue that the Ba, which is a human-headed falcon that can travel from the netherworld to the mortal world, the Ba would technically be a ghost because it is a version of your soul, it is a version of your spirit that travels back to the original, like, plane of existence. So that's where the Egyptians had some sort of belief in a ghost, but you can kind of understand why it's not very popular and it wasn't talked about a lot because, let's face it, the funerals and getting to the afterlife was the most important thing to pretty much every ancient Egyptian. You are really not going to want to screw that up so much that you come back as a ghost, and you're not going to want to talk about it a lot because you don't want to scare people into thinking that they won't get into the afterlife. I mean, they kind of did that anyway, but, like, you don't need to talk about it because if you're a good enough Egyptian, you'll get to the afterlife and you won't have to think about being a ghost. So that's why they're kind of rare. But in a little bit, I will tell you a ghost story. We will read out a ghost story. So it's also important to mention that this is something that I did not know. I had heard of this, but I did not know about this until I did this research. But apparently, and I will just already guesstimate that this only kind of came up during the New Kingdom because we have textual evidence, like the most textual evidence we have from the New Kingdom. But apparently, if your family could not afford you a proper burial, your Ak, which is the immortal transformed self, could return to the mortal plane to complain to your family. So apparently, any wrongdoing that was done to the deceased could be cause for a haunting. I.e., your family could not afford the really luxe extra mummification. They couldn't afford any mummification. They gave you a really crappy sarcophagus. They did not give you great offerings. Apparently, an Egyptian soul could come back to the mortal plane and, yeah, and haunt them. But, which is, it is totally saying something because the Field of Reeds is the ultimate destination in the afterlife. After you would go through all of the different gates, you hopefully would be able to get to this place called the Field of Reeds. And it is supposed to be very similar to real life, but in a land with the gods, and pretty much in a perfect land with the gods. Like, I don't think there's any famine, disease, like, think of literally a heaven is the Field of Reeds, where you're hanging out with all the gods and stuff. So, usually, people would not want to leave the Field of Reeds. Yes, because it wouldn't literally be like their body. It would be only one portion of theirs. It would be the portion of their immortal soul will leave to go complain and then can come back. But yeah, very easily. Because supposedly also, if they went through all of the different gates, they know all the names, so they could very easily just go back. But apparently, the deceased person had to plead their case with the gods to convince them to leave, to let them leave. So it seems a very rare occurrence, at least in Egyptian belief, that they would be able to plead their case enough so that they could go back to the afterlife. And if they got to go, then apparently the ghost of the deceased person would then go back to the world of the living, and they would hash out all their problems to find a solution, and then supposedly they would go back, and that would be it. And it's wild that that is a belief, but yeah, apparently it is. And then we also have this thing that is almost the opposite of that situation, and these are called letters to the dead. So, very similar to how it sounds, the living person, what more excuse do I need? You need a good excuse. You need to say, my family did not provide me offerings. I am starving here in the afterlife. I need to go and take some shit down. I don't think you'd be able to go and say, if you were cheated on or whatever in real life, you couldn't go and do that. It has to, I think, do with how your relatives are treating you in the afterlife, because technically your family is the one who is still gonna kind of provide for you, and they're gonna be the one who provides you a good funeral that will hopefully sustain you in the afterlife. So if they don't give you stuff, if they don't leave you offerings, then you'll starve, and obviously you won't die in the afterlife, but it won't be great. So these letters to the dead were kind of like the opposite, in that the living person would write a letter to the deceased person. And also I will mention, most likely he will go get this letter written, because people could read or write. But they would get this letter written to the dead person, and then it would be placed in the tomb chapel. Some of these letters, we also have some written on pottery as well. Some of these letters sought help against dead or living enemies, usually some sort of family dispute. Others would ask for legal support for a petitioner who had appeared before the divine tribunal at the Day of Judgment. So these letters are frequently about a problem, maybe even that the living person is being demonically possessed or is getting ill, they will try to appease to the deceased ancestor. And now I will read you a letter. This is not the ghost story, but I will read you this very famous letter dating to the Middle Kingdom. What wicked thing have I done to thee that I and granted, this is a translation, so it's not 100% accurate, and it's a little antiquated with the these and thous and stuff. What wicked thing have I done to thee that I should have come that should have come to this evil pass? What have I done to thee? But what thou hast done to me is to have laid hands on me, although I have nothing wicked to thee. From the time I lived with thee as thy husband down to today, what have I done to thee that I need hide? When thou didst sicken the illness which thou hadst, I caused a master physician to be fetched. I spent 8 months without eating and drinking like a man. I wept exceedingly together with my household in front of my street quarter. I gave linen clothes to wrap thee, and left no benefit undone that had been performed for thee. And now behold, I have spent 3 years alone without entering into a house, though it is not the right one. It is not, though it is not right that one like me should have to do it. This have I done for thy sake, but behold, thou dost know good from bad. The basics of this is this husband is writing a letter to his deceased wife of 3 years. And he is telling her, why the hell are you torturing me in life? Obviously thinking that she has somehow possessed him or has somehow sent demons to possess him and hurt him. And he's saying, what are you talking about? I sent for a physician. I spent the 8 months without eating and drinking. That's probably some sort of mourning fasting. I gave linen clothes to wrap thee. I buried you well. I gave you lots of offerings. And then for any questions about, I've spent 3 years alone without entering into a house. The house is a brothel. So without entering some other woman's house, I have not entered it since you've died. And yet you still torture me. Yeah, so this widower is very sad because apparently his wife is torturing him from the other side. So I think he did something horrible, but I think he's a man and doesn't know. And doesn't know what happened. All I can think about is Fiddler on the Roof with Frumacera. Frumacera, Frumacera, Tavia! What is this about your daughter marrying my husband? Yes, my husband. Why did you do this to your friend and neighbor, Frumacera, Frumacera? Sorry, if anybody doesn't know what that is, please look it up. It's amazing. He's a man, he's silly, and doesn't know things. Yeah, pretty much. So these are letters that you would put in a tomb chapel to kind of talk to your deceased relative. Whether or not obviously you'd hear anything back, you wouldn't. Like, I think the purpose of it was more, here's some images. So this is a very badly preserved version, but here you can see a pottery, and I really want this book because I want to read these. But putting something in like a tomb chapel like this is what they would essentially do. So that now it's time for the ghost story. And I unfortunately couldn't find the actual Egyptian text for this ghost story, but I have a summary and I have some quotations from it. So we're going to just read it off of a website. But this is an image of one of the ostracon. If you don't know what an ostraca or an ostracon is, it is pretty much a piece of pottery or a rock that has been inscribed with something. Because pretty much papyrus is very expensive, and so you could write on anything. So a lot of times if somebody broke a pot, those shards or sherds of pottery, you say shards of glass, sherds of pottery, those sherds could be written on, and we have lots of evidence of these throughout Egyptian history that give us great textual stories, literature, medicine, legal stuff, lots of different things. So this is one of the ostracon that this story comes from, and the story is called Consemhab and the Ghost. So we're gonna just go back over to Google. And here we're gonna read it off of World History Encyclopedia because theirs seems a little longer than the Wikipedia one. Let's zoom in for anyone who wants to read it as well and ignore the ad. So again, we got Khonsemhab and the Ghost. It dates from the late New Kingdom, specifically the Ramesside period. Found in fragments of Ostraca. George Posner and Urig von Breckenrath. They claim they are copies of a much older story, probably dating to the Middle Kingdom, and that's probably true. A lot of the stories that we have from the New Kingdom, we can probably assume they came from the Middle Kingdom originally. So again, here's our image of it. The story exists on 4 ostraca discovered in and around the necropolis of Deir el-Medina, near Thebes. Deir el-Medina, again, is the village of the tomb builders and designers and artists of the can't think of the word, Valley of the Kings and Valley of the Queens. So it's also pretty much our main hub for any sort of textual resource because it was pretty well preserved and it was pretty well excavated, luckily. The ostraca today are housed in museums in Paris, so the Louvre, Florence, I'm assuming the Florence, the Archaeology Museum, Vienna, and Turin. Turin is probably the Egyptian Museum. Unfortunately, as with a lot of stories, the conclusion of this tale has not been found. My favorite story, which I think I told y'all or I did a TikTok about, my favorite story doesn't have an ending as well. So unfortunately, it's kind of just what happens. So before I start reading it, some claim that this is a first-person narration by a speaker, and then sometimes it's a nameless narrator. Where does it start? Okay. So, after 2 lines of which relate some sort of journey, Khonsemhab returns to his house and calls on the spirit. No, wait, sorry, I missed something. Okay, the nameless narrator then some claim it to be a first-person narration by a speaker who spends the night in the necropolis in Thebes and encounters an angry spirit. This nameless narrator then goes to the high priest to seek his help, and Khonsemhab raises the spirit to talk to it. The first-person narrator interpretation rests entirely on one of the early lines. Some claim that it's third-person narration. The beginning of the story is as fragmentary as the conclusion, which breaks off. So it's understandable how one concludes the I mentioned at the start indicates the first-person narration. So pretty much, Khonsemhab raises the spirit to talk to it after some guy slept in the necropolis, so where all the tombs are, and was attacked by an angry spirit. Khonsemhab returns to his house and calls on the spirit to come to him and identify himself, promising to help him by building a sepulcher and providing him with all sorts of good things. All sorts of good things is a phrase that is frequently used in offering spells, and it just is a shorthand version of saying, I will give you all of these amazing offerings, but I don't want to have to write all of them out, and I don't have the space to write them all out. The typical offerings are bread and beer, further going on with meat, such as goose or bull or beef, lots of different types of ducks, lots of different types of oils and incenses, frankincense thrown in there, fresh cloth, so like linen cloth is very expensive. I think that's it. There's lots of very specific like types of goose and types of cloth and types of things, but I think that's mainly what most offerings are. Lots of oils, lots of perfumes, lots of incense and stuff. It is clear that the high priest is already aware of the spirit's troubles. The ghost appears and says that his name is Nebu Sem-ek. Consemhab asks the spirits what is troubling him, and Nebu Sem-ek replies that his tomb has fallen and that no one now remembers where he is buried, so that proper offerings are no longer brought. Nebu Sem-ek says he is exposed in the wintry wind and hungry without food, and fears he may soon cease to exist, or as he puts it, to overflow like the inundation. The inundation is the word that we use for the floods that came down the Nile every inundation season. So apparently this poor ghost is scared that he's not going to fall apart, and he will be lost because his soul has no home to contain it. So this is very much a Coco situation with the afterlife. Khonsu Semhab sits down next to the spirit and weeps for him for his sad state. The spirit then relates who he was in his life, and I think this is a quote from it. When I was alive upon the earth, I was an overseer of the treasury of King Mentuhotep. Again, this is a king from the Middle Kingdom, even though the story dates to the evidence of the story dates to the New Kingdom. So it's probably actually a story from the Middle Kingdom. And I was a lieutenant of the army, having been at the head of men and nigh to the gods. I went to rest in year 14 during the summer months of the king of Upper and Lower Egypt, Mentuhotep. He gave me 4 canopic jars and my sarcophagus of alabaster, and he had done for me all that is done for one in my position. He laid me to rest in my tomb with its shaft of 10 cubits. Cubits is a size, so he's got a pretty big tomb. See, the ground beneath has deteriorated and dropped away. The wind blows there and seizes the tongue. Now as for your having promised me, I shall have a sepulchre prepared anew for you. I have it 4 times already that it will be done in accordance with them. But what am I to make of the promises you have just made to me, so that all these things may succeed in being executed? Consemhab assures the spirit that he will do everything he can for him, saying, "Please express to me a fine commission such is fit to be done for you, and I will surely have it done for you." But the spirit is not convinced. Nebu Sem-ek says, "Of what use are the things you would do? Unless a tree is exposed to sunlight, it does not sprout foliage." Meaning that he does not expect the priest to be able to provide him with the kind of home he once had, as Consemhab does not have those kinds of resources. Just as a tree cannot blossom without sunlight, his tomb cannot be rebuilt on promises and goodwill. The priest has assured him that already that, if he cannot build him a new tomb, he will have 5 male servants and 5 maid servants bring him food and water as offerings daily. But the spirit will not be consoled. Hi, Chef Daddy! Welcome! I'm dressed as Riversong, my favorite fictional archaeologist, and we are just wrapping up our lecture by telling everyone a ghost story. The only Egyptian ghost story that we kind of have. About a poor little spirit named Nebu Sem-ek, whose tomb has caved in, and he is wandering and attacking people because he wants a tomb to go back to. And so Consemhab, a priest, is trying to reassure him that he's going to do everything to help him, but the spirit's not really listening to him. I love this guy, Little Book of the Dead. So Nebu Sem-ek disappears. I know, I'm so sorry, Chef Daddy. Everyone will be able to watch the VOD later. But yeah, this is the last thing we're talking about. I can chill definitely for a little bit afterwards, but I don't need to go to bed totally ahead of time, but I need to make sure I don't have to shower before tomorrow. So Nebu Sem-ek disappears, but Consemhab does not forget what he had promised. He sends men to search for the ruined tomb, and they find it, 25 cubits distant along the King's Causeway at Deir al-Bahri, and return to tell their master. Consemhab is pleased with this news and celebrates with the men, and afterwards summons an official to tell him about the project. The story ends with a line, "He returned in the evening to sleep in the knee, and he... ... and the rest of the tale is unfortunately lost. The knee in the line refers to the necropolis at Thebes, and it is thought that Consemhab returns to where he was at the beginning of the story to tell the spirit that he will soon have a new home. So yeah, that's I'm trying to see if anything else is... Oh my god, is this the whole story? We could have read this! Do y'all want to hear it again? Y'all want to hear it in actual Egyptian? I don't know how long it is. I'll read it again. We got time. I was literally looking for an actual translation of this and not just a summary, and I didn't scroll down on this page farther enough. Alright, I'm gonna read it again. Again, the beginning and end are completely fragmentary, so it's a little weird. And then also this is gonna be antiquity. Yeah, I'll read it again. Okay. Excuse me. I'll have some water. Oh, and I want a bite of my apple cake. Alright. So this looks like a translation of the text. Don't know how good it is. Don't know how old it is. Who wrote it? Is this Simpson? Yeah, that's kind of an older book. Simpson's okay, but it'll be fine. Okay, so again, completely fragmentary beginning and completely missing end of the story. According to his habit, after the way he had done, he ferried across and reached his house. He caused offerings to be prepared, saying, "I will provide him with all sorts of good things when I go to the west side being the necropolis." He went up onto the roof, and he invoked the gods of the sky and the gods of the earth, southern, northern, western, and eastern, and the gods of the underworld, saying to them, "Send me that august spirit," so he came and said to him, "I am your ... who has come to sleep during the night next to his tomb." Then the high priest of Amun, Sab, said to him, "Please tell me your name, your father's name, and your mother's name, that I may offer to them and do for them all that has been done for those in their position." The august spirit then said to him, Nebusemek is my name, Ankhmen is my father's name, and Tamshas is my mother's name." Then the high priest of Amun-Re, king of the gods, Sab, said to him, "Tell me what you want that I may have it done for you, and I shall have a sepulchre prepared anew for you, and have a coffin of gold in ziphus wood made for you, and you shall rest therein, and I shall have done for you all that is done for one in your position." The august spirit then said to him, "No one can be overheated who is exposed to wintry wind, hungry without food. It is not my desire to overflow like the inundation. Not seeing my tomb, I would not reach it. There have been made to me promises." Now after he had finished speaking, the high priest of Amun-Re, king of the gods, Sab, sat down and wept beside him with a face full of tears. And he addressed the spirit, saying, "How badly you fare without eating or drinking, without growing old or becoming young, without seeing sunlight or inhaling northerly breezes. Darkness is in your sight every day. You do not get up early to leave." Then the spirit said to him, "When I was alive upon the earth, I was the overseer of the treasury of King Mentuhotep." I now realize who King Mentuhotep is. King Mentuhotep is Mentuhotep II, who had the temple in Deir al-Bahri, so immediately next to Hatshepsut's temple, and Thutmose III's temple is the temple of Mentuhotep II. And they mentioned Deir al-Bahri in here. So although this is a New Kingdom story, mentioning a king by name indicates that it probably was written during that period, or at least shortly after Mentuhotep II's death. So this probably is based off of a story from Middle Kingdom, even though we have evidence of it in the New Kingdom. And I was the lieutenant of the army, having been at the head of men and the nigh to the gods. I went to rest in year 14 during the summer months of the king of Upper and Lower Egypt, Mentuhotep. He gave me my 4 canopic jars and my sarcophagus of alabaster, and he had done for me all that is done for one in my position. He laid me to rest in my tomb with its shaft of 10 cubits. See, the ground beneath has deteriorated and dropped away. The wind blows there and seizes the tongue. Now as for your having promised me, I shall have a sepulchre prepared anew for you. I have it 4 times already, that it will be done in accordance with them. But what am I to make of the promises you have just made to me, so that all these things may succeed in being executed?" Then the high priest of Amun-Re, king of the gods, Kon-Sab, said to him, "Please express to me a fine commission such as is fit to be done for you, and I will surely have it done for you. Or I will simply have 5 men servants and 5 maid servants, totaling 10, devoted to you in order to pour libation water for you, and I will have a sack of emmer, that's a grain, delivered daily to be offered to you, and also the overseer of offerings shall pour libation water for you." Then the spirit of Nebu-Semek said to him, "Of what use are the things you would do? Unless a tree is exposed to sunlight, it does not sprout foliage, but stone never proceeds to age, it crumbles only though." King Nebhep-Tere, LPH is, they actually mentioned it up here. LPH is life, prosperity, and health. It's when you say LPH, you say it after kings' names who have deceased. Thank you, Pod. I'm gonna drink. Oh, just spilled water everywhere. So you have to include like LPH, life, prosperity, and health, after you talk about a god, or after you talk about a king who I believe has passed away. I can't think if it's passed away, or if you're just talking about a specific god. Or maybe it's talking about a living pharaoh. That's what it is. I think you talk about a living pharaoh. You have to say life, prosperity, and health to him. There the high priest of Amun-Re, king of the gods, commissioned 3 men, each one, and he ferried across and went up. The men searched for the tomb near the holy temple. Okay, yeah, so he's talking, so there's obviously a fragment missing, like in between this part, but now we've switched to the high priest goes to the current king, which if we looked up this name, we'd probably get, we'd get Mentuhotep. Yeah, so that's Mentuhotep's throne name. So maybe they are implying that he is still alive. So Kon-Sab goes to King Nebet-Hepere, gets 3 men each one, and he ferried across and went up. Oh, excuse me. The men searched for the tomb near the holy temple of King Nebet-Hepere, son of Re, Mentuhotep, LPH, and they found in it being 25 cubits distant along the king's causeway at Deir al-Bahri. Then they went back down to the riverbank, and they returned to the high priest of Amun-Re, king of the gods, Kon-Sab, and found him officiating in the god's house at the temple of Amun-Re, king of the gods. And he said to them, Hopefully you've returned, having discovered the excellent place for making the name of the spirit called Nebu-Semek endure unto eternity. Then the 3 of them said to him with one voice, "We have found the excellent place for making the name of that august spirit endure." And so they sat down in his presence and made holiday. His heart became joyful when they told him, until the sun came up from the horizon. Then he summoned the deputy of the estate of Amun, Menkau, and informed him about his project. He returned in the evening to spend the night in the necropolis, and he ... So again, we assume that Kon-Sab goes back to the necropolis and probably tells the spirit, "We found your tomb," and he goes to somebody named Menkau, who's like a deputy of the estate, which I think means he's somebody kind of like in more the financial portion of like the court, to kind of get money so that they can, money and supplies that they could go and fix this guy's tomb for him. And so unfortunately the story ends, but we can assume it probably ends in a happy ending, and that he goes back and tells the spirit that we're going to fix up your tomb and you're going to be fine, and we'll bring you offerings. So as this very nicely says, ghosts were not considered spooky. They were simply a natural part of existence, and they usually took pains to guard against, for sure. I didn't mention this, there are evidence of wise women and stuff. Oh, I know. It is a horrible, sad cliffhanger. It always makes me sad. He's just a soul in need of help. And there's a lot of respect for the dead. True. Not all spirits are bad, but some were dicks. For sure. For sure. Yeah, unfortunately a lot of Egyptian stories don't have a conclusion. Oh my god, you can see where the wig was sitting on my forehead. Unfortunately a lot of them don't have a conclusion. My favorite one, the tale of, yes, Chef Daddy! That was where we started the lecture. We did a whole talk about Heka, and the god Heka, who is pretty much just a personification of magic. But yeah, Heka is technically the ancient Egyptian word for magic. The best way I've described it is that magic in ancient Egypt is a little bit better. It's a little bit... Oh, that's 100... Heka, that's 100% probably from ancient Egyptian. I didn't even think about that. I didn't even... Yeah, you're totally right. Like, that has to be probably Egyptian influences. I'm gonna look that up. I wonder when she dated to. Because if she dates to, like, pre-Ptolemaic Egypt, she's gotta be, like... That cannot be a coincidence that their names are so close. With some Greek oracle. I mean, I don't care, like, it's obviously... I don't care if it's what she actually is about, but the name itself has to be mixed. That's too much of a coincidence, for me. But we kind of talked about how magic essentially, this is your conclusion of everything. Magic in ancient Egypt is religion. And while their religion is not like a lot of other religions, it's definitely closer to pagan rituals, Wiccan, witchcraft kind of things. When we say magic, you should pretty much always in your head assume religion. With the exception, if you hear magic, it could also be medical stuff. So, never assume when it comes to ancient Egyptian magic that we're talking about magicians or wands or wizards or Harry Potter or anything. Literally the only thing that I will let you all think about magic is literally the story of the goose. You want to watch the goose video? Let's watch the goose video. I think it's on my Instagram. We can watch it. I just gotta find it. Here we go. We're gonna watch the goose video.
Welcome to Fun Fact Friday.
I hope this will be loud enough.
Hey everyone, welcome to Fun Fact Friday. Did you know that there is a story about an ancient Egyptian magician who could reattach the head of a decapitated goose? So this tale is part of the fourth story on the Westcar Papyrus, which is located at the Egyptian Museum in Berlin. Each of these tales are told through the royal court of King Khufu by his sons. The papyrus dates to the Hyksos period, which is during the third intermediate period of ancient Egyptian history. Now, this papyrus was discovered by Henry Westcar around 1823, and then it was obtained by Carl Richard Lepsius around 1838. This is heavily questioned because it might have actually been stolen. Okay, but back to the goose magic. Prince Jedifor tells his father, King Khufu, that he has heard about a magician named Jedi. Apparently, this man eats 500 loaves of bread, a shoulder of beef, and drinks 100 jars of beer every day. He was also able to decapitate and then revive beings. King Khufu's like, I want to meet this guy. So the prince goes and collects Jedi and brings him back to the palace. Khufu then asked for a demonstration of the decapitation and revival trick, and he actually offers one of the prisoners that was meant to be executed. Jedi is like, I don't want to hurt a human, so let me show you on a goose. He starts by decapitating the goose, and then taking the head and placing it on the eastern side of the hall, and the body on the western side of the hall. He utters a secret spell, and the head and body both stand up, and then waddle together until they meet the middle, and melt together into a real goose. The goose ends up leaving the hall cackling, and I think that's my favorite part of the story. All in all, King Khufu is really impressed with his magic skills, so he lets him stay in the prince's palace, gives him 1,000 loaves of bread a day and 500 jars of beer a day. Like I said, there's a lot more to this story, along with a lot of mystery about what it actually means, so let me know if you want to hear the full story of Jedi the Magician, and check back in next week for another Fun Fact Friday.
Yay! Fun Fact Friday. I'm gonna get back into these soon. It might not be until next week. Or next weekend. It is a diet. It is an insane diet. 500 loaves of bread a day. And granted, I don't think a loaf of bread in ancient Egypt is as big as like a modern loaf of bread, but that's still an insane amount. And then Khufu gave him 1,000 loaves of bread. It's like, sometimes it's just, the exaggeration is just so obvious. Excuse me. Yeah, having folktales in your role-playing game sounds great. Like, the Westcart Papyrus is super interesting. The other thing, Chef Daddy, we had a whole discussion on, like, halfway through, is we had a long discussion about my ideas for Ancient Egypt D&D, which are potentially in the works. Tiny loaves or big stomach. Who knows? Maybe this guy was huge. Maybe this guy was like a giant, and just he could pack it in. I don't know. Oh, sorry. Keep yawning. And I tried to type in Twitch, and I just typed in TE. Literally, apparently, the story goes that he put, and he did this with multiple animals. He started with the goose, and then did it with multiple animals. He apparently put the head and the body on other sides, and they both stood up and walked toward each other. How a head walked toward it, if it like hopped or if it sprouted legs, like it doesn't say. But yeah, I don't know if geese can do that. I know chickens kind of freak out for a little bit, but I also thought that wasn't just chickens, because I thought that was more of a nervous system problem. Because, like, if I remember correctly, even humans, when they die, sometimes there is stuff like, there is stuff where they, like, twitch. Like, it has something to do with your nervous system and, like, the electron, I was gonna say electrons, and I don't want to sound stupid, but, like, I don't know what travels through nerves, electricity, I don't freaking know. But, like, whatever travels through your nervous system apparently is still kind of with you. Because there are instances of, like, humans, like, twitching after they've been pronounced dead and such. But yeah, I would 100% freak out if this guy came in and just, like, oh, sorry, I tried to hold that one in. Decapitate a goose. Then he said, oh yes, that was the portion I didn't talk about in the video because I was just trying to talk about the goose magic, because honestly, I didn't understand that portion of the story at all, and, like, that's where it leads to a lot of interpretation. But yeah, then the Jedi said that he knows how many secret rooms were in Thoth's temple, and then the king was like, are you, it's literally that TikTok trend, are you shitting my dick? Because the king is like, Khufu freaks out because he's like, I have been wanting to get to these temples for so long, and I've never been able to do it or whatever. And he's like, you need to show me what happens. And I think, if I remember correctly, the story ends short and doesn't tell us, or like they go on that journey and we don't find out or something. I can't remember. Oh, a random pregnant woman knows. That's what it was, Star. You're totally right. It was something about you have to find a pregnant woman, or a woman who had, I'm looking this up now, Uh, why is it so hard to find this? Jetty. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, he's like, what does he say? He says, um, yeah, it's like you need, both animals are successfully brought back to life. Now the king says, it is said you know the number of Iput inside the Wennet sanctuary of Thoth. Now, may you be praised, O sovereign, my lord. I don't know their number, but I know where they can be found. He goes, where is it? He goes, it's in a box of scrolls made of flints, stored in a room called the Archive in Heliopolis. And he goes, take that box. And he's like, may your highness be prosperous and blessed. I'm not the one who can bring it to you. And he goes, who can bring it to me? And he goes, the eldest of 3 children in the womb of Red Dead Jet. He will bring it to you. The king says, I really wish all these things you say. Who is Red Dead Jet? And it's like the wife of the Wad priest of the god of Ra, lord of Sachbu, that the eldest of the 3 shall worship as the high priest of Heliopolis over the whole realm. And then he becomes grim, and he's like, what are you talking about? Like, this dude's gonna become king? Like, come on. And then... yeah, his daily gainings should be 1,000 loaves of bread, 100 jars of beer, and 1 neat and 100 bundles of field garlic.